All right, Jeff, thanks so much for hopping on to the show. I really appreciate you coming on. So I know we connected on Instagram before, really to get this thing going. We have a lot of things to talk about, but I guess first thing that I really wanted to get into was how did you get into real estate? Sounds like you had a really interesting pathway to get into where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've basically been in variant of customer service for over 25 years. I decided to jump into real estate a little later in my life after my military career ended. So a little background on that was I got medically released from the army. I had reconstructive foot surgery and sort of put me out of the military. I ended up getting a federal government job and just going day to day. But I was missing something. There was just something missing in my life. And at the time, a friend of my wife's was a real estate agent in New Brunswick, and happened to put out a post about who wants to become a realtor. Anybody interested in becoming a realtor? And with the wife's support, she said, "Why don't you reach out?" So I reached out, and lo and behold, I ended up writing my exam and becoming a real estate agent here in it's the area of St. John, New Brunswick.
Awesome. Oh, awesome. That's great to hear. And thanks a lot for your service as well. What made you go into real estate specifically? Like you said, you were into sales. What made real estate the one kind of inkling for you?
So, over my life, I've always had, those jokes saying, "Hey, Jeff, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, an Alaska type thing." And, it was about, I've done a whole pile of customer service jobs selling stuff, be it everything from selling knives to selling Avon. And none of those had the feel of like I was actually accomplishing something within sales. But with real estate, you're not necessarily selling a product, you're helping people with their journey. So, I meet with the client A and we discuss what they're looking for. And my job is to find what they want. And so I find what they want and then I help them through the journey to get ultimately their house or their investment property or their rental unit, etc. And I find that's a lot more rewarding than selling you a knife, to cut your steak with, right? It doesn't give you the same satisfaction as, when your client calls you up and says, "Jeff, this is amazing. Check out this view I just had on my porch, my very first coffee." So just to feel that it's undescribable.
Yeah. No, that's awesome to hear. Like definitely can hear the passion just from the way you're describing that. I mean, like it's really like you were saying, you're not just selling a simple product or a service. You're really guiding somebody on a very important life decision, right? At the end of the day. So that's awesome to hear. I mean, really music to my ears for sure. So let's get into New Brunswick. How is the real estate market from your perspective, having worked there for a few years now, of course? What are some trends that you're seeing right now? How was kind of the 2023, 2022 transition period from to now? How is that looking for you right now as a realtor?
Well, you know, I always get asked this question, and everybody has their own opinion on, how's the market? Well, it really comes down to what do you mean by how is the market? So, are we talking about residential? Are
Mhm.
you looking just for your family home? Are we talking multi units? Are you looking to, expand your real estate portfolio? Are you looking to invest? Are you just looking to, invest in a commercial building and become a landlord for the commercial building? Or do you have a business and you want to run your business out of the commercial building? And, also as well, are you looking to rent?
Mhm.
Are you just looking to find an apartment building or are you looking to find a house? And then, the newest one that is starting, is up and coming is short-term rentals. Are you looking for a short-term rental because you want to be here for 3 months, see if you can find a job, see if you like the environment, and then maybe decide to purchase a home? So really, it really comes down to it's a very broad question. How is the market? Well, I need to know your specifics in order to help you, in exactly what you're looking for. So that's sort of my interpretation of when somebody asks me how's the market. It's like, well, we got to dive a little deeper, because if I just say how's the markets and we just look at, statistics that all the boards release saying, okay, we sold X amount of listings last month, but really, is that what you're looking for? Do you really want just to see the statistics of, okay, how many residential sold last year, or sorry, last month? How many rental properties or multi units were sold last month? Like, so it really comes down to what you um, you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fully understandable. Yeah. I mean, I guess for the purposes of this, I mean, how about from the perspective of a residential environment where let's say there's a family of call it like three or four looking to buy their like first or second property. How would you advise somebody like that within St. John, New Brunswick at the moment?
Okay, so if we're looking for, you're looking for your first family home, or like you said there, your second property or your vacation home or something like that, there is low inventory currently.
Mhm.
So there's, and I mean, that's pretty much across the country. There's low inventory. Um, but that's where my professional and my expertise come into play. So you come to me and say, Jeff, look, listen, we really want a vacation home. We need 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. That's where there's other avenues we can take as real estate professionals that, for example, exclusives. A lot of people don't understand what an exclusive is. That's just, I'm talking in the office, another colleague of mine is working with a potential house coming to the market and says, Jeff, I have exactly what you're looking for, and then I reach out to you and say, look, I found exactly what you're looking for, your 3 bedroom, your 3 house. So, it really comes down to working with the individual realtor to find what you need, because we can always find it. Real estate has been around, and if you really think about it, real estate's been around for thousands of years. You know, not obviously the modern real estate we see today, but back in the day where you had a village, and I came to you and I said, I really want to live here. So I buy your little hut from you, for a couple, I don't know, stalks of corn. So real estate's always been there, and real estate's always going to be here. So it's just a matter of what you specifically are looking for, and that's where my expertise come into play, and I help you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, fair point. I mean, like, and you mentioned kind of the aspect of it really depends on the individual realtor that you're working with as well. I guess going into that, like, what qualities do you think makes a realtor like a top tier or a highly trusted, highly credible realtor? Because obviously within Canada, as a country as a whole, there are a lot of realtors to put it, to put it kind of in simple terms. How do you set yourself apart as somebody who is a liked, trusted, and known figure within your community?
Be yourself.
Oh, so in terms of like building the trust credibility
Yeah, right.
as a realtor, right? I mean, how do you build that for yourself, and how have you done that in your career?
How I've approached it, like I said, I do real estate slightly different than a lot of realtors do. I'm about building a foundation, right? So I'm all about building relationships, because to me, real estate is all about relationships. It's not about listing, selling. You know, it comes down to building a relationship with you. Um, I'll give you a prime example. I'm currently working with a client, and we discussed some personal things. I mean, not every, not right down to the nitty, but it's remembering those tiny little things that they remember, and they want to work with you.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? So what I do is I separate myself by saying, I'm going to hold your hand through the whole entire process. You have any questions, you pass them off to me. I will take care of them. I want you to have the most stress-free experience while you're purchasing probably the biggest purchase of your life. So that's how I sort of differentiate myself between other realtors. Is it's all about building the relationship with you, holding your hand all the way through. And I know 90% of the time people hate hearing that term, holding my hand while you're taking me through something. But if I can ease it for you, and basically, make all the phone calls, uncomfortable phone calls you don't want to make, and get all the questions I can with what I'm allowed to ask, right? Um, yeah, that's what I do for you. So I take it. And also confidence, right? It's all about your confidence. You need to be confident in what you're doing. If somebody calls me up and says, Jeff, I'm looking at that blue house down the street, right? I'm like, oh, um, yeah, that blue house. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. No, no, you got to be confident. Like, oh, you're talking about the one on 123 Smith Street? Absolutely. They currently have 2 offers on it, but let me see if they're looking for a backup offer, or a third offer or fourth offer. You got to have that confidence. You got to let your clients know you're there for them. It's all about them. It's not about you.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, no, interesting. Yeah. And then on the kind of relationship building side, you were mentioning before the call that you approach the real estate game in more of a networking aspect in terms of getting new potential people into your pipeline. How does that work for you? Talking about that, like the networking side.
Yeah, so I look at it as, I would love to do business with you. So I met you, say we were at a networking event. So here in St. John, I'm not sure if other cities do it, but we have what's called the St. John Chamber of Commerce, which there's chambers of commerces all across the nation. And they put on networking events where you have other like-minded business entrepreneurs that come and, you have conversations and tell them what you do. They tell you what they do. So what I do is I build relationships with them, and they know people within their circles or their spheres. And so that's what I do. And I look at it as, I may not want your business, but I want all your friends, your family's business. So I look at the big picture. I'm a big picture guy. I'm not looking at, okay, I need to close this guy right now and make my, couple $100 deal with this guy. I want to build a relationship with him or her that's going to last a lifetime. So your grandchild will call me up when I've been doing this for 40 years and be like, Jeff, you sold my grandpa's house, and my grandpa talked highly of you. I want you to list my house. I want you to find my first house for me. So I'm playing the long game. I'm not playing the short game. And I find by building my foundation, and you'll hear me in this interview quite often say the word foundation. I'm building my foundation because if you ever look at how a pyramid's built, it has a very strong foundation. And then everything above that stays. Where you get a lot of realtors that fly right up with all their sales. They're selling left, right, and center. But then when they get up there and they become stagnant, calls aren't coming in, business isn't coming, their pyramid starts to teeter. And then they fall. And they got to try to rebuild themselves. Where my foundation, I'm starting. And I'm slowly going to build up my pyramid. And then when I'm sitting upon it, I'm not going to fall back down. So that's sort of my interpretation.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake that most realtors make in building that foundation? Because like you were saying, a lot of realtors, they kind of build it up and then falls down. They don't get any more calls and they don't get any more opportunities. Why do you think that happens? Or where do you think kind of the bottleneck is there, you could say?
They don't want to build long-lasting relationships. They just want to basically talk, give you just enough information to do business with you and be done. They don't want that long term. They don't want to say, hey, how's your kids doing? Is your kid in ballet? Oh, absolutely. Oh, they're doing a fundraiser? Yeah, send me, I'll give you $100 for this fundraiser. They don't want that thing. They just basically want to, help you. They're not going to disrespect you or dishonor you or any such thing, but they're not going to want to be there long term with you. So I think it's the investment, right? They're not investing in their people. And at the end of the day, I think you need to invest in people too.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. And I guess with that, how do you keep up with everybody like that? Because I'm sure you have people that you work with before, like many years ago, or working with currently. What are some ways that you catch up with everybody or nurture them? Is it as simple as just looking through your contacts and giving them a phone call every now and then? Or do you have some specific things that you do to really make sure that you can keep fostering a really strong organic, relationship with them?
Because New Brunswick is a lot smaller than some cities like Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, you tend to run into a lot of the people at the grocery store. You run into them at the Walmart. You run into them, all over the place. So, there's that aspect where I'm running into people constantly. But I also use my CRM, right, which is your client management software, and always follow up with them. You look, okay, my last contact with John was 3 months ago. You know what? I need to check in on him, see how he's doing. I heard he went on vacation for 3 months to Australia. I'm going to touch base with him, see how he's doing when he comes back. And it's all organic. It's not, hey, are you still interested in real estate? Let's talk. It's, how was your trip? How was it? Did you get any souvenirs? Would you bring me back? That whole joke, right, thing because I want people to feel comfortable with me, not, oh my God, this guy's just trying to sell me stuff. Leave me alone. You want to have the real estate talk towards the end of your conversation, not at the beginning of your conversation. Do you know what I mean? If we're having a conversation and I really want to close the deal with you because I've been working with you for 6 months, I don't want to start off with hey, excuse me, are we going to close the deal? No, it's, hey, how's the wife? How's the kids doing? I heard your kid, scored 1,000 points at the basketball game, and then when the conversation is steering there, it goes, so let's just loop back. So that property you were interested in, is it still a go? You know what I mean? So it's, you want to save that till the end so they don't think that's all you're thinking about.
Mm. Yeah. Keeping it organic, keeping it natural, and like not just sell, like you were saying, just really like actually caring about people and acting like a real human being. And then it naturally progresses, into the sale or where we're kind of getting down to business. So no, that's awesome to hear. I mean, like, I guess from an online perspective, I'm curious, and how does that transition to that? Because have you ever tried any type of lead generation methods or anything like that where you've tried to get outside sources of people into your pipeline? How has that been for you?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Of course.
So I did it once, and being a rookie realtor, my first, like, I had reached 6 months. I spent nearly $3,500 of money I didn't really have for lead generation, and I had zero leads come through. And when I was stuck in a contract. When my contract was over, I spoke to the gentleman in sales and said, look, listen. He's like, oh, we can offer you a deal. We'll keep it going. I'm like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done. He's like, oh, how many leads did you get? I go, zero. And he goes, that's never happened before. So yeah, so it was one of those ones where, you know what, if it's going to happen, it happened to me. And I literally ended up with absolutely no leads from this service that I was paying, $700 a month for.
Mhm.
And I had absolutely no leads come out of it. And all my business has been because of my personality. I'm a very, I don't know if you've ever done DISC training, but it's a personality training course. I'm what's considered a high I, which is inspiring. So
Mhm.
basically, the example for that is, ooh, look, butterfly, and I go chase it. That's my personality. So therefore, 90% of my leads come from relationship building, networking, talking to somebody in a grocery store, the face to face versus the online presence.
Mhm.
But in saying that, I'm not knocking online presence by any means. I do have a marketing team that takes care of our marketing. I do have, my social medias. So I have my Instagram, I have my TikTok, I have my Facebook, I have, all the social medias that I do throw up, um, ads on there, jokes on there, real estate material, to keep that active because you never know when you're going to get that one lead coming off of there. So, I don't want to, you know, push that off to the side saying I don't need that because I get all my business from face to face. You want to be able to have your hand in all the pots.
Mm. Yeah, no, and also like I've seen your page providing value, just adding a laugh here and there, just kind of showing your personality as well. So I'd love to see that. I mean, I guess going back to like that one experience that you said you had with that lead gen company, where do you think things went wrong? Like what do you think happened what do you think happened where it's like you got zero leads from that?
Because if you dive deep into lead generation, so basically from this particular company, again, all of them do different things, different aspects. Um, so when I first got into the business, when I heard the word lead, I assumed it was a person that is being given to me and I just have to chase them down.
Mhm.
But after doing my research into this company, all they're doing is they're going for somebody that checked off, I'm looking for houses in St. John area, that they sent that contact person over to me. And then when I chase them down, they're like, no, I'm just browsing. I'm not looking at buying real estate. So I don't think they were quantified correctly based
Mhm.
on the service I used, where they were actual serious people. Like, I'm really looking for a house. It was more of, an algorithm taking this person that's looking in my specific area, sending it over to me. And then when I follow up with it, they're like, no, I was just looking on realtors.ca, for example, and I'm not really looking for a house. I was just bored and looking through houses to see what ones are out there. So I think that was what I experienced with that particular lead generation company.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, yeah, because it sounds like it was kind of like you're targeting people who maybe they're just scrolling out of nowhere or browsing and they're not really thinking too much about actually buying anything. They're just clicking things around. It sounds like, the biggest kind of perpetrator of that was that, it wasn't really reaching people who are actually like high intent. high target and actually like had the intention of, I always say, they didn't have wallets in their hands, so to speak, right? Ready to make some kind of decision. So it's interesting to hear about that. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's like you were saying, there are a lot of companies out there that do lead generation, including ours, right? So it's like we want to understand exactly where you're coming from and your experiences, because ultimately the ideal goal for you is a lead should be not even just contact information of a person, but it should be a person who is actually shown interest in what you're offering, or looking to buy a house soon and would like to have you as their realtor already. So it's really interesting to hear about that. I mean, yeah, I think it's super unfortunate what happened, but I'm glad that you were able to at least take some lessons from that. So um yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, yeah, talk to me about like the social media aspect as well. I know you mentioned the marketing team. So like how has that been so far? Like has that been kind of a recent addition for you? And also, why have you been more intentful in your marketing as of late, or have you always been that way?
I sort of like to have a little bit of everything. I'm not one of those guys that, like, you do see a lot of realtors where they're like social media heavy. They do those crazy videos, where they're running through a house and then they do this, the switch over. I said when I got into real estate that I'm going to be me, right? As I mentioned earlier, right? You have to be you. And I'm not huge on all the social media stuff. I mean, I didn't have Facebook when it first came out. I didn't have Facebook probably for 2 or 3 years after it came out, because that's not me. I like the actual interaction, handshake, hug. I'm a hugger. So, that hug, the guy hug, right? And so that's my type of personality. So, trying to focus all my business sitting in front of a computer saying, okay, what am I going to put out for today's funny photo? It That's never been an interest to me. So that's why I do touch a little bit on my Instagram, as you've seen some of my Instagram stuff, on my Facebook page. But again, my social media, if you want to call it that, is I would rather go to a networking event with you in person, hand you my physical business card, have a conversation, and then generate a lead from there.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said earlier, I still keep my social medias going because you never know that, for example, I'm talking to a few people out in BC. So, they're investors. So, I'm using my social media to reach out to them saying, hey, I know you invest in properties. Have you ever thought about investing out of province? So, I get the little worm in their ear saying, hey, out of province, out of province. So, something might flourish from there. That's why I haven't, cut social media completely, because I do know quite a few successful realtors in the area that they barely have any social media presence at all. And, they're top dogs. They're so busy doing listings and bringing buyers and, doing commercial properties that they don't got time to even hire a marketing team to do it because they don't need it. So, it's a little bit of everything you want to have.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like the best approach is probably to, you focus on mainly shaking hands and closing deals and going to networking events, while you have an outside, marketing company or a marketing team that kind of handles a lot of that, the legwork of getting everything out there. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, sounds good. Sounds good. And I guess also you were mentioning the podcast. I'm really curious to know more about. So I'm not sure how much you're allowed to reveal at this point, but what's that looking,
I
that
can,
shaping up?
it's my baby. It's my baby. I can reveal it. My teammates might, hit me for it, but I sort of was thinking of, like, you know, other, I follow some really motivational speakers on um, Instagram and, whatnot. And, sometimes it's just that one little sentence they say about the stuff that we have access to that's free, use it.
Hmm.
And one of them was, he said, podcasts. But you've probably heard yourself, a million different realtors. They come in and they talk about interest rates. They come in and they talk about listings. They talk about, the BRRRR strategy. They talk about flipping strategy, and all this. But really, you as a consumer, is that really interesting to you when you're looking to buy a house? Absolutely not. So my podcast approach is slightly different. My idea for it is interview based. We are going to have a few, interest rates, maybe a mortgage specialist come in, talk about a lot of real estate. But my thing is, why don't I sit down and interview a principal of Grand Bay Westfield, the school? ask what they like about the school. What do they like about the area? Because if you're looking to move your family, say from BC, it's way too expensive there. You want to move to New Brunswick. And now you're listening to a principal talk about, that the kids are respectful. The kids are great. We have small classrooms. We're outside in our outside classroom. What? You have an outside classroom? We don't have that in Toronto, right? So that's my approach I want to take and then I interview anybody. It don't matter. I'll interview, if you own a flower shop, I'm going to interview homeowners. Why have you lived in Grand Bay your whole entire life? Why have you lived in St. John your whole life? What is it about this? Why haven't you thought about selling your house? So my approach is I want to have a different type of podcast to hit target audiences. That's where we're in the infancy stage. We're running ideas, thinking about a studio, thinking about just doing, initially doing non-video and just strictly doing vocals for the intro. So, like you do with your podcast, it takes a little bit of prep to try to get it where you need it to be. But yeah, that's sort of the idea we're running with.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I can't wait to hear the podcast. Let me know. Please do send it over when you post the first one. I'll definitely have a listen. But I think it's a really cool idea, and also, like you were saying, it's a different approach than kind of just echo chambering the same interest rate news and how the market's doing in a very general sense. It is interesting also from a marketing perspective to create a new approach in that way, right? Because you're not directly selling it again, because it's more of a genuine conversation as opposed to just, hey, here's interest rates, here's how market's doing, here's my contact details, give me a call, right? It's more so of a genuine conversation. We really want to learn more about them and what their story is. And then, like you were saying, slowly transitioning into the real estate talk and the housing talk and how certain conditions are affecting buying decisions nowadays. So really cool to hear. And I wish you all the best with the podcast as well, for sure.
Thank you.
No, for sure. So I guess last point and last question that I wanted to kind of talk about with you was what are some lessons that you've learned throughout your real estate career thus far? And like what are some mistakes that maybe you made that looking back could have been avoided? And what would be some things that you would tell other realtors that, hey, this is something that I did, or maybe this is something how I approached it. This could help you out in your career somehow.
Yeah, that's a tough question to ask, about what you've learned and what lessons learned. My thing is to, that's tough. Let's see where we can go with that. You have to find your niche that you want. I find a lot of mistakes we make are we jump on all the bandwagons. When you get into real estate, you want to be like the top Remax agent. You want to be like the top, we're running before we walk. So I think you need to take a step back and you need to crawl first. You have to sit back. You have to sit back with your brokerage. You have to say, okay, look, listen, this is what I envision my career looking like. Can you help me get to that point? Because you're not just going to start then throwing out all of this complicated stuff on your social medias, but you have no idea what it's talking about. So point in case, does anybody know what an environmental assessment is? Do you know what I mean? If you don't know what an environmental assessment is, you're going to have to go find out what an environmental assessment is before your clients start asking you, especially in rural areas that, are on septic and well, and, not on the municipal, that there could be an environmental assessment against your property. So I'll give an example of one of my very first listings. I had the buying realtor approach me and saying, Jeff, do you understand that there's 3 environmental assessments against your property? And I said, what is an environmental? So then I just started doing my research and my digging and found out that, yes, there was some. And, thankfully, they were all remediated. So we were good. But that was a lesson learned for me now that I know that basically if it's outside the city, I'm going to check that to make sure there's nothing against it when we list your property. So, it's about educating yourself, I think is the key, right? And find a specialty and focus on that within real estate. So, you can have luxury properties, you can have land, you can have multi-units, you can have commercial. So find the one that you're passionate about and find out everything you can about that instead of trying to know a little bit about all of them.
Hmm.
Ask for help. That was the biggest thing too, is ask for help. And I don't mean, we always struggle with ourselves asking for help because we always think it's a negative. There's always a negative to it that, oh, you're asking for help. You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you help me? If you're in my office and you know everything inside, outside, up, down, but commercial, because that's all you've done your whole career, and I'm getting my first commercial listing, should I not be coming to you and asking you for help? Right? It's not, I don't know commercial, but this is my listing. The clients want to work with me. So can you help me? Right? So ask for help. That's another, I think a lesson learned for me is just ask for help. It doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It just means that you're going to learn what you need to do. Make sense?
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, do you think the resistance to asking for help comes from maybe the nature of just being very competitive and not wanting to, like, I guess, steal information from somebody, or kind of like, a zero sum approach, right? Do you think that there's a bit of egotism involved as well, or?
I have to admit, probably on the East Coast, I would have to say no.
Mhm.
I think it has to do with human nature. As humans, we don't want to ask for help, right? How many times have you been carrying a heavy box? It's super heavy. You got like 3 or 4 of them on you. You're carrying them and you can't see, right? And you have a gentleman just walk up to you and like, "Hey, sir, can I help you carry that to your car?" And you're like, "No, no, I got it. I'm okay. Don't worry about it." Right? It's instilled in us that we don't want to ask for help. But if you turn around and say, "Yeah, man, if you wouldn't mind, that would be awesome. It's just I shouldn't have grabbed all 3 of those boxes. I was just in a rush." Right? And the gentleman's gonna laugh about it. You hand him your business card. Next thing you know, you guys are doing business together, right?
Mhm.
So it's we have to get out of our own comfort zone, realizing that asking for help doesn't make you weak. If anything, it makes you more confident because you have the ability to ask a complete stranger, for example, "Hey, do you mind helping me with carrying these boxes because I can't do it myself because I can't see where I'm going?" Right? You have that confidence now that doesn't matter who they are. So that's sort of where I think it is. I don't think it necessarily has to do with competition, um, because at the end of the day, we all work together, right?
Yeah.
If you have a listing, you need me to bring a buyer to your listing, right? So if you're selfish and you're mean to everybody, and I see your name on the listing, am I really, obviously if my client tells me, yes, we want to see this house, absolutely, right? But it's we all have to work together. We're all a team.
Mhm. No, absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, like you were saying with the box example where you're asking somebody to help you lift a box up, that same energy translates into the networking events where you're asking for people, you're talking to people, you're having conversations. So it's like just kind of living your normal life and putting yourself in, you could say, uncomfortable or out of your comfort zone positions. It seems like you've been really able to you could say master, but also just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right? That's kind of like a big
Absolutely.
thing that I'm getting from you. Do you think that's like, what do you think that's one of the biggest things that's kind of made you successful as a realtor? Just the ability to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely agree with that. I think another advantage I have is that I'm a people person. You
Mhm.
definitely have to be a people person to do it, which I think a lot, if you take a look at a lot of the people, they are uncomfortable all the time. When it comes to stuff because they're not afraid to, get up in front of a crowd, 1,000, 500, 10,000, it don't matter, and just pour it all out. At the end of the day, that's the biggest high you can ask for is when, I get into a group of 500 people on stage and I have to do a presentation. You can't ask for a better high than that. It's you're scared, you're nervous, you're like, I don't want to say the wrong thing or they're going to judge me. Right. So you have all of these things hitting you from left, right, and center. But then when you're done and people walk up and they shake your hand and they're like, man, that was a great speech or that was a great lecture. You can't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. The feeling afterwards, that high that you get is just amazing. And it's never as bad as it seemed before going into it. I'm not sure if you found that as well. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
No, definitely, definitely. Yeah. Well, Jeff, honestly, really, really good to speak to. I think that we were able to really, I just really wanted to pick your brain a little bit and get a lot of your wisdom because I feel like you were saying, approach real estate in a very different way than most realtors do. You could say more traditional, but more effective at the same time, right? So you're kind of sprinkling in the digital technological aspects, keeping the core of being that person that really steps outside the home, makes moves and shakes hands with people. How's the rest of the year looking like for you? I know we're almost halfway through 2024 already. It's May tomorrow. What is your how's your year looking? How's your are you lined up with your expectations? Do you think you're going to be hitting your goals by the end of the year?
I think I'm going to achieve my goals by the end of this year. Again, with life experience, I realized that you don't make the crazy goals anymore. You don't go, I want to sell 5,000 homes, when you're 20 years old, right? You're just jumping into the industry. Not that I jumped in when I was 20. I've only been doing it for 3 years. But you make more realistic goals and they're easier to achieve and hit. So, I want to do, 10 leads or 10 ends, for example, right? I want to do 10 transactions for the year. You know what? If I do 15, that's amazing. So, you want to make realistic goals and it's a lot easier to achieve and it keeps your momentum going. But when you make those unrealistic, like I need to do 25 because everybody else in my office is doing 25. And then when you only hit 15, you're sort of, oh, this sucks. Back to the drawing board, right? So make realistic goals, you achieve those goals, and then everything after that's gravy.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sage advice right there. Yeah, definitely kind of putting your goalpost in a way where it's like you're not gonna disappoint yourself, but also you're not gonna be over underselling yourself. So it's like you're kind of in a good middle ground, so to speak, in that way. But yeah, thanks so much again, Jeff, for hopping on. I really appreciate the conversation. I think that a lot to pick up from these things that you were kind of talking about, because a lot of the things that you were mentioning is a lot of is things that a lot of realtors don't really focus on nowadays, with kind of the the glitz and the glam and the shiny objects nowadays. So really appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot for sharing a lot of your insights, and good luck with your podcast as well. I mean, definitely, when you post the first episode, we'll include it, in the show notes, or the link in the description there, so people can check it out as well. But yeah, really appreciate the time. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks
for
so
the
much.
invite.